Alright, so now let's take a look at drawing ledges and pits. I'm going to show you the maybe the tedious way to do it, and then a really simple, easy way to do it by creating a brush. So to begin, we're going to need a couple of palettes. I'm going to close out my swatches and my color. I don't need that right now. What I do need though is my brushes palette. So let's find brushes. There's mine. It's already showing, so I need to come over here. Let's grab it and separate it over here so we can see it in our view. And I'm going to grab my stroke palette too. So let's go to View or Window, and then down to Stroke. And there it is. But I'm going to clean things up a little bit because I don't need all of these. So I'm going to grab my stroke palette. I'm going to close this bunch of palettes, and I'm going to move this over here. There we go. Brushes and stroke. Alright, so let's begin. Now the tedious way to do this, which a lot of people may be doing if they don't quite know about brushes, and that is if you grab your pencil tool and I start drawing a line here, I'm going to trace over. I've got this nice little pit. I'm going to trace over it. Let's continue on down. There we go. I've drawn my line. I come over here and let's decide how thick we want that line to be, 0.75 or 1, 0.75. That looks pretty good. And then I'll grab my line tool, and then I'm going to come in here. Let's see, not quite that far. And I'm going to start drawing the little notches sticking out. Now you can see that if you had a lot of pits and a lot of ledges, this would be extremely painful, and especially if you're a little bit sloppy with your mouse, then you might end up getting something like what you see here where they're sticking out and it's just a pain and nothing's working. So let's show you the easier way to do this. I'm going to delete that. Zoom out a little bit, and to begin, what we need to do is we're going to create a shape here that we can turn into a brush. Now looking at the brushes, you'll notice that all of these are straight. All the lines are straight for the most part, except for this little notchy thing here. So when we draw a brush, it needs to be drawn straight. For the most part, it'll curve later when we actually draw the line here. But to start off, we need to draw a straight line that will be have these little notches on here that will be our slope and ledge symbol. So I'm going to use the line tool for this. And let's hold the mouse down and draw out with the line tool. I'm holding the shift key down as well. That forces it in 45-degree increments so I can get a nice straight line, perfectly flat and level. So there's my line that I'll start with. I could probably even go smaller than this if I undo that, just so I don't have to draw so many points. So I'm going to start with this line, and then I'm going to zoom in here, a little bit too far, and I'm going to draw the notches. So using the same line tool here, there we'll draw one, and I could come in here and draw others, but I want them all to be the exact same height. So what I'm going to do first, well, one thing I could do is copy and paste them, Control C, Control V, and it's pasted just outside the window here. So then I can move it back in. What I prefer doing, there's a keyboard shortcut. If I click on this line, hold the Alt key down or the Option key, notice how my cursor changes. I can grab it, drag it, and it drags out a copy, a duplicate. And I can select both of those now, hold the Alt key down. Now one thing to watch out for when you're doing these fine selections is if I hover over this and I get the curvy arrow and I start moving, that's going to end up rotating it. And I really don't want it to rotate. So let's see, I'm going to grab both of those, hold the Alt key down. As soon as I get that double arrow like that, I can drag it over. And I think that's probably good enough. I think 4 should be fine. Now I've got a problem where some of these how do you describe that? They moved below the line. So I'm going to fix that, and I'm going to show you a really cool palette that you can use here. If I select all 4 of those and I'm going to open my Align palette. So Window, Align, there it is. Let's nest it over here to get it out of the way. I have different ways I can align things. I can align them by the top line, which is right here, and that will nudge them all up so that they're all aligned along that top. And another cool thing I can do is if I want them to be separated perfectly evenly, I can select all 4 of these with the black arrow tool, click and drag to select them, and then click this guy, and that aligns them, spaces them evenly. So you can do that, or it might be kind of cool to maybe not have them spaced evenly. Move one over like that, maybe this one a little bit closer to that one. That could be a really cool effect, or it might not, depending on what you want to do. So let's move that back. And now with the brush, whenever I create it, I don't want it to have this round end, because if I do, it's going to look like sort of a dotted line. There's going to be a gap in between my brush. So I need to select this. And if you remember where we do that, in the stroke palette, and here are the endpoints, I'm going to change it so that the endpoint ends right on the line. Not, if I click on this one, it'll push out from the line. I'm going to have it end right on the line. Pushing out might work as well. I've never tried it, but you could try it and see. The other thing that I need to do is make sure that these end lines here are half the distance of the gap in between two lines. So what I mean by that, let's click it. Oops. This is a mistake you might run into with CS3, 4, or 5. When you double click on something, it takes you inside of the shape, and if that happens and you go to click out and you can't get to these anymore, these other shapes, what you can do is double click in the space and that takes you back. Or if I double click on a line again, there's this little arrow up here. If I click that, it takes me back to the artboard. So a couple things you can do if you run into that problem. So I'm going to grab this and let's shrink it in. Let's shrink this in so that it's about where it needs to be. It's probably good enough. And I need to nudge these up because I'm seeing the round end of those sticking out, and I don't want that. So I'm going to zoom in really close here. And let's move them up just enough so that I don't see that. All right, and maybe that could be a little bit more. Let's take it out to there. That's good. Anyway, so the distance here and the distance here is equal to this distance there. And I'm going to shrink these down a little bit too, because it looks like the lines that I've drawn here really aren't that long. So let's move that down a little. Maybe just a little bit more. Okay, there we go. All right, so once you've got everything, your brush here drawn out, it's not a brush yet until I drag it into the brushes palette. So let's move this over. Let's grab this guy. So I've selected the entire thing, going like that, clicking and dragging. If back in the layers, let's open the layers really quick. Something you might want to watch out for. I'm going to open my layers. If for some reason I hadn't locked my survey notes or my line plot or stations, I might have accidentally grabbed those. So I can click and drag and get that because I have these locked. See, if I unlock survey notes and click and drag, all I do is just move the scan in the back. So you want to watch for that. Let's lock that. And I should have created a new layer for it. I didn't. If you do this, make sure to create a new layer. All right, so I'll grab this. Let's grab it, drag it, and drop it over here. And what we're going to do is create a new pattern brush. This brush seems to work the best for what we're trying to do. So I'm going to hit OK. This opens up. Let's give our brush a name. I'm going to call this Ledges and Pits. And scaling, I want it at 100%. I want it to be the size of what I've drawn out here. Spacing 0% because I don't want it to be a dashed line like that. And let's see, I can have it flip along different axes, stretch it to fit, add space, do a bunch of other things. And you can play with those settings and just see what they do. But once you've entered in the name, go ahead and hit OK. And there we go. We have our new brush. So I'm going to delete this now. I don't need it anymore, this shape we drew, the line. And I'm going to zoom out just a little bit so you can see what's going on. So here's our pit. Grab my pencil tool. I'm going to, actually what I could do, I can either start drawing the line and then click over here, or I can, let's see if this will work, if I grab the brush and then start drawing. No, I guess you have to draw the line and then click this. Okay, so there we go. Now I've got my line, my ledge or my pit here, but it's facing the wrong direction. So in order to fix that, I'm going to delete it, and instead of drawing from left to right, I'm going to start drawing from right to left. And now I'll apply that, and now it faces in. And I can go around and continue the shape here. It's sloppy. And there we go, a nice looking pit. And I can fine tune it just like we did with our walls. Drag inside, draw inside there. Let's shape it, mold it, and there we go, a beautiful pit. So if I want to create a ledge, basically the same thing, except for instead of sealing the shape, I'm going to draw my line, apply that. It's going wrong direction, so let's try it from the other way, from right to left. And there we go, nice looking pit. Or ledge, I should say. Okay, so I think that's it for drawing these ledges and pits. In the next tutorial, we'll look at drawing domes and these ceiling ledges and that kind of thing. Pretty much the same concept, but I'm going to show you how you go ahead and set it up so you can make it look nice and smooth and clean.